Hey everyone, back again, another episode of the Steelers Chat. But today we have Chris Carter from the Pittsburgh Post Gazette, as well as his own podcast, Locked On Steelers. How you doing, Chris?
What's up, D? It's been a minute since I seen you at training camp up here in the city of Pittsburgh. How you been?
I've been good. I've been good. I'm so glad to have you on. Let's catch up. Let's talk Steelers. I mean,
hmm
how are you feeling as we're going into week 3? I mean, week
I
4,
mean,
but
week four, it's fine. Yeah.
know.
I mean, it's still a lot of fun to cover this team. It's fun to cover, football in general. I'm excited to see the directions that this team goes because right now there's a lot of angst that a lot of fans have about the offense. But I think the defense has got something in store for this upcoming game because you look at a lot of the matchups, especially with the Jets' offensive line. I think you may see a bit of a return to the dominance that you saw in Week 1 against the Bengals,
Mhm.
and maybe even some hope for the offense if they're able to get their stuff together.
Yeah, so we'll get into that matchup in a second here. Um, but actually, you know what? Let's talk about the matchup now.
Okay.
There is some concern about Akilla Witherspoon and his availability in the secondary. So, how do you think the secondary is going to match up?
Well, I like Minka Fitzpatrick. The fact that he was a full go on Wednesday is a very good sign, and he's the piece that holds that secondary together. I think Witherspoon is important for the rotation that the Steelers like to use at corner. They like to have him and Sutton and Levi Wallace out there, and then kind of deploy Arthur Marlette as they go, and same thing for Trey Norwood. But if Witherspoon's out, that means that you're basically going to have a system where Sutton and Wallace are your outside corners full time, no questions asked. Which means Arthur Maulet's going to have to step up in the slot a lot more. I actually like what he's been doing this year. I think he's
Me
been good
too.
physical. Right. He's
He's
been solid.
he's the guy that I thought when TJ Watt went out, not that he's an outside linebacker, but I just thought that they would use him more in like some blitz packages. Just because he just brings that energy. He's just so angry, going after the ball. So I'm expecting to see more Arthur Millette for sure.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how the Steelers do use him because he reminds me a lot of Mike Hilton in the way that he's physical. He just throws his body in the situation. And Mike, over the years, developed a really great reputation for doing that with detail, a lot of things. And of course, Mullet has a ways to get to that, but he's been solid in that slot corner position. I also am intrigued to see how they use Trey Norwood if Witherspoon's out, because Norwood's going to probably be helping more at that safety position to help cover the middle part of the field with Sutton gone. I think the one thing that it really might hurt them in is that the Steelers, their secondary, they did so well against the Bengals was that they switched up their coverages so much. They'd show cover 2, switch to cover 3, show cover 3, they'd switch to cover 2, and they'd show cover 1, then it'd be a cover, it'd be another cover 2 or cover 4 look. They would just have so many different disguises that Joe Burrow didn't know what he was looking at. And with Zach Wilson ready to play for the Jets, I think that would be a tool that they could have at their disposal. But again, with Witherspoon out, now you're bringing in more guys to the equation, and I'm not saying that they wouldn't try that with Trey Trey Norwood and with Arthur Maulet getting more snaps, but I think it kind of dents the pace that they could go with at that, because they were running 100 miles an hour with those switches in game 1.
For sure. Do you think Zach Wilson, he's apparently going to be ready to go on Sunday? Do you think that changes up the game plan at all for this defense?
I think that the defense might consider the mobile threat a little bit more. I think that if this was Joe Flacco, they'd be like, just get to that guy because he's a statue right now.
Right.
But Mike Tomlin said on Tuesday, he's like, we've never faced that guy in a stadium before. We can look at tape as
He's
much as we
new.
want. He's
Yeah.
new, right? I mean,
Fresh meat.
and exactly, and that's the thing, a freshman, and you haven't seen him play at all this year, and so sometimes that can be really tricky facing an opponent. But other times, you can also look at his past. He's been real skittish in the pocket. He's made some tough decisions in the past, and Zach Wilson can be a guy who can be very up and very down at times, and he has a powerful arm. He can fit it into tough spaces and give you shot plays. But the Steelers have shown that they're very good at limiting those shot plays so far. I think the biggest thing is keep the play in front of you. Don't let him hit the bomb to Garrett Wilson. And trust your defenders to have gap integrity, stop that run, and when he starts to get happy feet, make him pay for it.
Yes, those are kind of the keys to me for almost any mobile quarterback with us. There are a minor change up front with Tyson not being a starter. I'm not shocked at that. I'm not
Right.
surprised about it. I kind of went into the season not knowing if he was 100% healthy. I mean, and then Montravius, of course, in camp wasn't 100% healthy himself. So do you have a feeling about the change on the depth chart for that tackle position?
I mean, absolutely. I think Tyson Alulu, you look at those first three games, there were times in the Bengals game he looked good, but those last two games, he just looked blown off the ball, tired. One thing to remember, I mean, that guy missed most of last year. You're 35. You don't just walk back up after that and just play
Yeah.
great. And there might be part of him that can eventually get there, but the Steelers like, you know what, we don't got time to wait for that around. Tyson Alulu, they have a ton of respect for that man. If there's no, I don't think his pride is going to be damaged by this. It's like, hey, there's a younger guy. We're going to get him more snaps. You're still going to be in the rotation, but this guy's just going to get more snaps because he's playing better right now. And I think that's why they kept him on Travius Adams. They liked what he brought last year when they brought him up from the Saints practice squad. I'm intrigued to see how he plays because I think that there's a bit of a synergy and a chemistry that this defensive line needs to build. Cam Hayward, Stephon Tuitt, geez.
I was like, wait, we're going back in the day.
No, well, the reason I was saying Stephon too is because I've been bringing this point up a lot over the past week and a half. In that, if people remember, Cam Hayward and Stephon Tuitt didn't just vibe immediately. It took years for those guys to develop their chemistry, and then also to work with Bud Dupree and then eventually T.J. Watt. There were stunts and twists that would
Yeah,
work.
it took TJ for Bud to just be a stud, right? So
Exactly.
it didn't happen when he instantly got there, and we were kind of just like,
Mhm.
what's going on?
Mhm.
Kind of like people are now with Devin Bush. They were kind of on the fence about Bud Dupree, but I can't say anything bad about Devin Bush. I've been enjoying his play so far. Yeah.
Yeah, he's played well. He's been aggressive. He's been fast. Those are all boxes that he needed to check this year for me to be like, okay, he's back to being who he needs to be. Now he still needs to be more of a playmaker, I think, and that'll come with time, baby steps. I'd say he's taken more than baby steps with the play that he's made so far. I also think a big part of what's going on with the defense right now, they're averaging 80 snaps a game. You can't sustain
Too
that.
many.
It's too
Too
many.
many.
Like you can't play great D. If the steel curtain was out there for that long, they'd be torched too. And
Yeah,
I'm not
you gotta
saying
think you gotta think about the injuries that, sustain from just working your body all those snaps and
Mhm.
just going at it. And not just the physical. I think people underestimate the mental strain that goes on when you're out there for so
Absolutely.
long. What are they about to do? This I've seen this play before, I've seen that play before. There's a mental element to being out there that long that people just don't have any consideration for. So it's so critical on the offense to just stay on the field. Excuse me, stay on the field. Don't get off. Stay on the field.
Absolutely, but I mean, look at the end of the Bengals game when it was Jamar Chase's touchdown that got them the chance to get the win. You saw there the Steelers had a lot of attention to detail handling the red zone up to that point, and then in that one moment after like 80
The
snaps,
umpteenth
they
try. The umpteenth
right.
try and shot in the end zone. By the way,
Exactly. That was the other thing. They kept getting shot after shot after shot with calls that were like a little questionable there.
Mhm.
So you're looking in that situation. I think that was mental fatigue. Like they had called so many adjustments, done so many disguises, and in that moment, they just kind of like just like, all right, base look. And Joe Burrow was like, well, I'll take Jamar Chase and like Ahkello Witherspoon all day. And I think you saw a similar thing with the two touchdowns that the Steelers let up against the Browns. The first
Mhm.
one, you got Amari Cooper in the
Amari
slot
Cooper.
against Terrell Edmonds. Edmonds backs off, gives him the end zone. He was expecting help to come. That was a communication breakdown. You
Yeah.
haven't seen too many communication breakdowns with this Steelers team. The first 3 weeks. I think have just legitimately just been physically and mentally worn down. But that's why I think this game against the Jets can be a really big game for them because I think that the long weekend, the full week of practice, not having to play Thursday night after two games that were just
Right.
ridiculously long for the defense. I think this is the week you start to see that fire and that passion take over a game for them again.
So we briefly talked about Minka Fitzpatrick and how he
Mhm.
was a full participant in practice today. Do you have any clue when he could have possibly sustained this concussion? Because he was extremely uncharacteristically quiet in the Browns game.
Yeah, I mean, maybe towards the end there was a play where they were trying. I mean, the Steelers were trying everything they could to strip Nick Chubb on the last few runs. Maybe he threw his body in a situation. I was looking back over the tape. I don't see a moment where it really was obvious that it happened. But
Mhm.
concussions are can be really tricky. They can be something that happened here and there. It could have been something that happened in an accident. Where
Yeah.
working out. I've heard so many stories over the years as far as injuries that happened not in a football game, but just like hey, they were working out and this happened. But they don't want to bring that up because they don't. The Steelers don't want to divulge that information. They'll just say, "Hey, this guy has an injured hand or something." So it could have come from anywhere. But I think the good sign is with the full participant, he'll be back. And Minka Fitzpatrick, we've seen him. That's a guy that he's pretty tough. He gets through a lot of fights through pain. He makes a lot of plays, and I think he's the center point that's going to be able to help them be a lot better in their communications on this upcoming Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, when I saw the report the other day about him being in concussion protocol, I actually wasn't too worried because I'm like, it's me.
Hmm.
Like he's gonna figure out a way to play unless just something crazy going on. And then there was some stuff that came out today about Mitch. I think Mitch is just Mitchell Trubisky being a leader. And by that I mean trying to kind of quiet some of the noise that's going on amongst fans, amongst the locker room, probably allegedly about this offensive coordinator that we know as Matt Canada. Him kind of stepping out and saying, like, Matt Canada's not the blame. Collectively, we're all got to take this one. And Matt's been calling some great plays. How do you feel about that?
I mean, I've been saying it all along. I don't think Matt Canada's been doing great. I think that there's some play calls that I'm just like meh about, but there's guys open most of the time, D. Like, I don't know about a lot of people. I watch the All 22 every week. I watch it multiple times. And I don't just watch for guys to just be open, but be open early, be open at reasonable times with a clean pocket. And there's more than enough times for Mitch Trubisky that he's been it's been reasonable for him to look at an open guy, to see an open guy. Sometimes he's even looked like he's staring him down, and he doesn't feel comfortable enough to let the ball go. I think maybe there's a little bit of worry on his part that if I make too many mistakes, Kenny Pickett will replace me sooner than later, and maybe that's a problem. But I think it's a real observation. A lot of Steelers fans, it's been this way since I've been watching football. The offensive coordinator is always the problem. It's always the play calls because fans want to feel like, oh, I'm smart, I'm football smart. You're like, no, it's not just blaming play calls. It's looking
It's
at the
never
actual
one
plays.
person. That's the thing.
Right.
Like it's so easy to blame one person. I kind of want to pie chart it, like a pie chart. What percentage is it? Like what percentage do you think it's the quarterback? What percentage do you think is the OC? What percentage do you think the offensive line plays? Like the offensive line. Don't get me wrong; they've been holding up and exceeding expectations for me. So I can't even. I gotta give them like I don't know. I'll give them a high 20% of the blame. That's high.
I mean, pass protection. They've been good actually.
Yeah.
They've kept Mitch upright. He hasn't had to abandon the pocket too much. It's funny, I see a lot of Steelers fans on Twitter just saying, "Oh, man, he has no time in the pocket." I'm like, y'all are. I swear, like y'all are Internet Explorer out here because y'all are just way behind. Like that was something you could have said last year, the year before that. This year,
Yeah.
they have given him pocket after pocket. A couple times he's had to escape because Josh Allen goes through that with the Bills. Lamar Jackson goes through that. Everybody has to escape at some point in time. Even
Yeah.
Ben
It's not
Roethlisberger
gonna last
when
forever.
exactly, and pressure's eventually gonna get there. So that's not the case, but like they're doing just fine there. The biggest thing I think they can do is they can combine on their run blocks a little bit better, build off momentum a little bit better. That's where I
Yeah.
think they can have most improvement. But if you're looking for a pie chart, I don't know. I'd say I guess 50% Mitch, 25% Canada, and then 25%. Especially if we're just talking pass game, the receivers, because there's times that Mitch has put it there and there's been drops. There was a play where I think
This is
Deontay
true.
Johnson
This is
needed to
true.
fight. He needed to fight through some contact on a Denzel Ward play. And Denzel Ward, slide play, he kind of like slapped Deontay's hand down on the deep ball on a third down. And it was a well placed throw. Mitch Trubisky made the right throw, made the right read. And that's one of those plays where Deontay, wide receiver one, if you can make that catch, that proves that you are indeed wide receiver one. So there's been plays like that. There's been a few plays I think Firemouth could have made that would have been really great catches in the moment. Again, like you said, it's a spread around. It's not one person, but more often than not, like you brought in Mitch Trubisky to just take the easy throws, take what is there. And sometimes the easy throw is also the downfield throw. Easy doesn't mean
Mhm,
short. Easy just
mhm.
means the
And
most open
and
space.
still, like, one thing I loved about Ben, he's gonna throw a deep throw to for the contact, right? I know my guy's
Hmm.
gonna get, like, Chase Claypool was in those positions. I know we have Pickens out there now, but
Hmm.
Chase Claypool was getting that contact. So you didn't catch the ball when we got that flag. We got those 15 yards.
Right.
So sometimes we have to make better decisions overall. So everybody's guilty of that. There's not one person, um, you know, that has to make a better decision. Everybody does. So
Yeah, I agree. It's a group project. They need to pull it
Mhm.
together. I think Mitch is the key part of it because I think you could especially see it with George Pickens' frustration. He's not just like open in the sense that it's one on one for a 50-50. He's been wide open, like schemed up open, and Mitch just hasn't seen it. And I think you've seen patience from Deontay Johnson and Chase Claypool because they dealt with that with the old man version of Ben Roethlisberger the last couple of years. They've kind of
Yeah.
had to be patient because you got to respect Ben even when he makes terrible reads as he was doing the last couple of years. But Mitch Trubisky don't got Ben Roethlisberger weight, and I think they're finding a way to be patient. George Pickens not having it. He's like, when I'm
Yeah.
open, get me
I
the
mean,
ball, we'll be able to win.
this guy is coming from, a great caliber college team,
National
getting
champions.
yeah, national champion, Georgia Bulldogs,
Yeah.
Georgia Bulldogs. But I think we're gonna see more, and I have to give them credit because they have gradually improved. I know it's not instant, but there's a gradual improvement. I didn't expect 14 points as early as I got them last game. I
Hmm.
didn't. I didn't know how. I said the first team to 21 was going to win. I didn't know how we were going to get to 21. I didn't know how many points Boswell was going to have
Hmm.
to get with his leg, but I was actually impressed with that first half of football, and it just disappeared. Pat Fryermuth not getting involved. I will never, ever, ever understand that. That makes no sense for that man to only be targeted in the fourth quarter.
In today's NFL, it really pays because teams will focus on taking away your primary option. They will do the Bill Belichick. They will double team your top guy. They'll crowd up that part of the field that they're in, and that's what a lot of teams are doing to Najee Harris. That's what a lot of teams are trying to do to Pat Fryermuth. But those are the moments that you need to that Mitch Trubisky has to see. Hey, if they're crowding the middle part of the field, take Deontay Johnson on the outside. If they're bunched up on one guy, find the weak spot. There was a play against the Patriots where Chase Claypool runs a deep in, and the Patriots are in cover three. Behind his deep in was a post pattern from George Pickens. The middle safety bit down on Chase Claypool immediately. That read needs to be ball out, hit Pickens on the post, and he could score a touchdown. Mitch Trubisky checked it down to Pat Fryermuth on that play, and it's just those are the basic reads. And again, that's not a complex thing. That's just this is what was designed up to be open. Either one would be open, and he went to neither. It's just I think it's those problems that persist for the Steelers team. But here's what I'll say about that, though. Like, you're hearing a lot of optimism from Deontay Johnson, from Mason Cole, from Chase Claypool. All these guys are saying we're a couple steps away from this. And I
Yeah.
mean, you look at teams, look at what the Colts did to the Chiefs this past weekend. No one had
Yeah.
that happening. I do think that this offense can figure out some things. They're not going to be a top half of the league offense with Mitch Trubisky at quarterback, but I do think that they can be better than they have been. And this could be a week to figure it out because I think the Jets are trying to figure out so much on both sides of the ball right now.
So normally for any other team, the Jets being on your schedule probably looks like an automatic W. But we know this team. We've been
Hmm.
around for a little while, and there's no automatic W for us anywhere ever. Um, so
Very
what
true.
So what do you think? I think it's a great opportunity, like you said, for them to go in here and be dominant, more dominant on the offensive side of the ball, and extremely, more dominant than they've been on defense as well. So what do you think? What do you think the outcome of this game is going to be?
I think this is a game where the offense finds a way to put up enough points, but I really think this game is dictated by the defense. You look at the Jets offensive line. If you think the Steelers offensive line is bad, go look at what the Jets are putting up with right now. They're down to a third string left tackle and a second string right tackle. George Fant was the number 2 left tackle for the team. He was replacing Dwayne Brown, who both of those guys are now on injured reserve. Mekhi Becton on injured reserve. That's a lot of guys. That's 3 offensive tackles on IR right now. I was talking to John Butchko. He runs the Locked On Jets podcast, and this is a guy, like, he knows the Jets. He writes about them. He talks about them. He's like, Chris, this Connor McDermott dude who's going to start at left tackle, he's Swiss cheese. He's not going to get it done. And that's Alex Highsmith who's lining up with him. Alex Highsmith.
Leading the league in sack.
Exactly. I think this is a game where you'll see arrested Alex, arrested Cam, arrested Larry, and they're going to all be kind of pretty mad, and they're trying to be aggressive and set a tone. I think this is a game where they pick on an offensive line that's very young, that's still trying to figure each other out, and playing with not a lot of chemistry right now. Take advantage of that, set the tone, get some turnovers. I think this is a game where you see 2-3 turnovers, and if Najee Harris and that run game can get going for the Steelers, that's the key here. I see this being a close one, but a low-scoring one, 20-16. Steelers find a way to win.
All right. 20 is always my number. I've done really, really bad at predicting games, so I'm probably just going to hold it off till Friday, maybe Saturday at the latest on my prediction, because I've been doing good with like the scores, but I've been doing really, really bad about who's going to actually win the game. So I think they would appreciate if I don't give a comment on who I think is going to win. But 20 is it right now. We got to hit 20 or else. So yeah, I appreciate that. And shout out, my 2 favorite guys right now are Jaylen Warren and Miles Jack. Miles Jack, but Miles Boykin on special teams too. Like the man
he's been solid,
freaking light, and Miles Jack, because he's leading the team in tackles and top of the actual league in tackles too. So he's been my guy from the beginning of the season that I was just excited for. So I know you are busy at the Post Gazette and they have you, doing all these fancy things over there. But I want people to know where they can find you, where they can listen to you, where they can tap in with you.
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Carter Critiques. You can find me with the Pittsburgh Post Gazette or post-gazette.com. Go there to read all my work on the University of Pittsburgh's football, basketball, volleyball, soccer, all their teams right now. Pitt actually has 4 fall-ranked teams right now in football, volleyball, men's and women's soccer. They are doing extremely well under athletic director Heather Lyke, so that's awesome. You can also check out my show, Locked On Steelers, the Locked On Steelers podcast on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Odyssey, YouTube, anywhere podcasts are hosted. You can also check me out at Channel 11, WPXI in Pittsburgh. I do a fantasy football show with Jenna Harner every Wednesday. I do a Friday night high school sports show with Jenna every Friday. And then Sundays, I'm on the Final Word, breaking things down on and off with that panel. It's a lot of stuff to take in there. But
Steve Harvey of Pittsburgh, y'all. Look at all them jobs.
Hey, I'll take it as long as I get Steve Harvey money, baby. Let's go.
Thank you, Chris. Please come back, later on the season and join us. We would love to have you again, man. Thank you so much.